I am a complete Luddite when it comes to sort of the contemporary electronics. I love it, but I realize like I have too much, I have too much on my plate with just like the electric guitar.
So you don't use software to work out your arrangements?
No, no, no. I I use like I either use my iPhone and I try to balance it on my knee or between my knees, and then I start strumming. I was like, God, I hope I'm getting this. Um, that's I mean, and I used to use a Radio Shack cassette player. It's like play, record, and then rewind. I kind of miss that. That's my favorite. But I've started using just like the iPhone, or I use my laptop and I sort of record it on that way. Really crude. No, I don't. When Sonic Youth had a recording studio, for many many years, like on Murray Street, and then and then Hoboken before that. And Lee would go there and record, and Steve. I couldn't even walk in the door and find the light switch. I never I always thought to myself as through the years, like I should probably learn how to like do this because someday I'm going to want to come in here and actually record. But I really wanted to keep a distance from the technology of the music, and I really thought like I don't want to clutter myself up so much with anything else except for just like the channeling of this kind of music and like bringing it out. Even like the idea of like learning how to play proper guitar or whatever, it's like, no, I don't want to do that. I was like, I don't want to, I don't really want to overfeed or something. I don't know how to explain it, but I always wanted to sort of have this kind of feel like it was always defined by this intuitive desire or gestures, as opposed to anything else.
So on By the Fire, there's 4 songs that are over 10 minutes long. And I'm curious, it's curious to hear you saying this about your Ludditishness, Ludditude. How do you come to the arrangement of one of these 10-minute songs?
When I start constructing a song that sort of goes into the 8 to 10 minute mark, it generally is with the practice is generally having a guitar and getting into this place where I'm finding the music happening as I'm constructing it and the ideas. And I started thinking about how the piece goes through these periods of changes that are relative to each other, or maybe not relative to each other, as sort of as it may want to be. But I think about it, I can sort of visualize it, like what its progression is, or what its arc is, or what its shape is, or what kind of effect I wanted to have as far as its own sort of sonic architecture of just like how things move. And I can sort of see that, and I can sort of and so what I generally do is I'll play, and if I'm kind of progressing in a way where the logic is really it's really personal, like it really is coming out of like something that that's moving through me, I entrust that I will recall it because I feel so intimate with it. But that said, I do keep the iPhone going or the laptop going or something going. And there's been too many times where it's like, oh my God, what was that? Like, oh, I can't find that file anymore.
What do you do about drums? I mean, I know I can hear what you do with drums when you actually record an album, but do you need a drum track to be sorting out your guitar ideas?
No, for me, it really is one of the most significant aspects of songwriting for me is employing a drummer who will be really interesting and remarkable. And early on, I think it was Michael Jarrah of Swans when Steve Shelley first joined the band. and we played a gig with Swans and Saccharin Trust in Los Angeles. It was kind of a cool gig. It was in a factory space and all these warehouse space, and all these people came, and it was kind of this coming out gig of sorts there. And Steve Shelley was just his first show with us on the West Coast, and Michael Giroir had seen us play since the very beginning. And we had a cool drummer named Bob Burt, who was very tribal and really groovy in his own way. But Steve came out of more of traditional and high technique drum playing. He was really this kid who played since he was a child. And so he really amped up the group when he joined. Like, wow. And I remember Mike Giroir saying, like, a band is only as good as their drummer is. And that really stuck with me. I was like, that's so cool. I mean, of course that's true. And so, for me, when I would be all through the years of Sonic Youth of writing music at home and then bringing it to the studio and say, I got this chord structures, I got this tune idea, whatever. I knew that Steve would create his own work with it. I would never say, like, this is what I want you to do on drum. But in the sense with Sonic Youth, it was like, I never said that to Lee or Kim either. I was like, this is what I want you to play on guitar. This is what I want you to play on bass. That was sort of the nature of that group. Nobody told anybody what to do. What you brought in was going to be transmutated by the other players. But outside of Sonic Youth, working with a band that I am the quote unquote leader of, I do say, this is what I want to happen with your guitar and with your bass and your drums. And I'm not a drummer. I'm a guitar player, and I can tell the other guitar player what I want, and tell the bass player pretty much what I want. But I can never really tell the drummer what. But it's really important for me to have a drummer who I think will be inventive. And generally, when they start playing, I'll say, "Well, that's too busy," or "That's just, that's too bombastic. Can you do something a little more minimal?" But that's all I can say. I can't sit behind the drumming like Paul McCartney, like, do it like this, man. I can't do that.
So in the song Siren, which is 12 minutes and 18 seconds long, there's a beautiful and very catchy guitar riff that starts about 4 minutes into the song, then goes for about 30 seconds, and then disappears and never comes back. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's happened before in some Sonic Youth songs. They're just like, why do you ever go back to that section? Because it's insane. And I was like, well, you heard it once. I understand the power of repetition, the power.
This isn't even a section. It's like a riff.
Yeah, it's a riff. Yeah, it is a riff. When I was writing that song, it was just sort of like, it was one of these situations where the initial riff would turn to the next section, which is that section, and it's just like, okay, that's really cool. We can just sort of stay here and play with this and keep going back to it. But what would happen if we actually just sort of really went out and took a left turn over here and then moved forward? And it's just like, that's all there was to it. And a lot of times I really like writing like that, where it's like this, it is, you talk about the relationship to literature. I think a lot about how books of fiction are patterned, through chapters and how they move forward. And I do sort of employ that kind of consideration into songwriting a lot, where it's just like, it's moving through this kind of story through these chapters. Very rarely will fiction sort of turn back onto itself. I mean, infamously, Burroughs would do that, right? He would go through loops in his books, which are still considered like almost too experimental to sort of be taught in academy.